I forgot. Good evening, everybody. This is the Citizens Advisory Committee, April 29th, 2025. Present, Dr. Chanley, Dr. Lehman, myself, Ms. Fabiano, Ms. Alvarez, and Ms. Ratner from the Board of Education, and Mr. Moraldo from Administration. Our agenda is pretty light, but at the last meeting, we weren't able to touch on the topic that's here, and it's fee-based enrichment, summer programming, and how it fiscally operates, and then how it has evolved and potential future expansion of these programs. And I've added and more programs if we can get them going, maybe through our committee, if possible. So now I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Moraldo, who actually was quite involved with these programs in the summer, and he can explain to us what we're doing.
He is the supervisor of these programs in that regard, so it works out perfectly.
It's perfect, yeah.
Great, thank you. And then I'm just gonna ask, if we could share the screen here. So you guys can see, and then our viewers, if there are any viewers at home, they can. You can pop the next one, sir. So, going back to the dark days of the pandemic, which feels like forever ago, thank goodness, but it really wasn't that long ago. The state solution to helping potentially remediate some of the challenges brought about by the pandemic and the shutdown of everything was to distribute monies to all the school districts in the state to and really gave us the authority to direct that funding in a way that best met the needs of our learners. And this was done pretty early on, and it was announced to us right around this time, I want to say, as we were getting ready to come back to school. And just for a little context, at that time, we were still not in school when we decided we were going to try to do something like this summer. We were home. And we had we were about to get ready for a partial return, okay? And masks were still mandated indoors. And I want to say pretty close to outdoors at that point, because there was a time I remember being outside for a concert and we were all outside with masks on. It was crazy. And, but those were the guidance that we had at the time. So we knew that heading back, one of the challenges that we had in Monroe was that our kids, we were going to welcome all of our students back to school in September and try to normalize things. And that was really a third thing to say. On top of that, some of the feedback we were getting by both the data that was being produced and some of the subjective feedback provided by parents, staff, and students was that our kids were actually doing quite well comparatively. And you know, we all probably have our own personal stories, but when compared to our peers, not only in our factor group, but also regionally, Monroe did very well, both measurably by a variety of metrics, but also internally as an organization, navigating the challenges of that lockdown. And I think there's a couple of reasons for this. One, our district, and I have to give credit to people that are no longer with us long before I was in the administrative role, had the foresight to commit to a digital approach to learning. And this goes as far back as to when this high school was opened, and we made the decision to go to a one-to-one initiative. So our students were adept on technology for almost a full decade.
Was that always the one-to-one initiative?
That's correct, yep. And you know, just because we're not one-to-one in the middle schools or the elementary schools, that should not understate the commitment to instructional technology that is taking place in those buildings. Not just at grade levels, but you know, we've gone as far as to make sure our cluster classrooms have iPads, and you know, where the argument didn't necessarily warrant a one-to-one, we still applied the commitment to digital learning when appropriate. This is all before the pandemic. A couple years after that, we decided that digital learning was going to be a pretty important skill for 21st century learners. And this is before we even knew what synchronous and asynchronous learning meant. And the former principal of the high school and former administration here at the central office greenlit an idea for us to design and implement a digital learning experience through our personal finance and economics course at the high school. And while we didn't do a full commitment to virtual learning, we brought the kids into the media center, designed a virtual learning experience for them, but under the supervision of teachers, because we knew that kids weren't ready for, surprise, surprise, spoiler alert, we didn't think that they were quite ready for full digital learning. That went on for about 5 years before COVID was even the word that we used. So that kind of set up the Monroe student, at least from a 6 to 12 standpoint, at an advantage comparatively to other districts that were just figuring out, hey, Google Classroom might be helpful in our society. So we had a heads up, and then obviously the staff and our tech department, our leadership navigated us through that terrible time period. Now, while we were all doing these wonderful things in Monroe, the state was not so lucky, the rest of the municipalities, and the state tried to provide them with financial support through the ESSER grants, and monies were distributed. And they were, the easy decision would have been take that money, dump it into some classroom kits, some learning centers, maybe some more technology, maybe some software, call it a day and tell the teachers, here you go, I've given it, right? And that would have been a very lazy approach, right? But keep in mind, while all this was going on, we were still not getting funding from the state. We were still wringing our hands over how are we going to sustain the growth of this municipality from an academic standpoint, not just from an infrastructure standpoint, but also to the insatiable desire for 21st century programming. They're just too expensive. I go back to the woodshop, the most traditional technology program we can offer. That program can't survive with a 2% growth. It can't, because the lumber's too expensive. The technology commitments that we have, particularly for high, not just high-end learning, but high-tech learning to all learners, special ed included, it's not sustainable without abating something else that already exists, and we don't want to abate. So we said, instead of investing into stuff, we're going to invest into people, and but mainly people. So we launched. Not only did we launch the summer enrichment program because we are watching, frustratingly, as all of our students were enrolling in private organizations and summer camps and things that call themselves summer learning experiences. But again, we had a lot of other assets to offer that these organizations didn't. And when they were showing up in September, with all due respect to our competitors, we were reteaching, reacclimating, and doing a lot of adjustments based on, some people call it summer learning loss. I see it more like summer learning hijacking, right? And we were seeing this particularly in critical areas like instrumental music, definitely in computer science and robotics. And we were also hearing frustrations from the consumer. Why am I spending X amount of dollars sending my kid here? Why can't we do something like that? These are stuff, even from the adult school argument and stuff like that. But this is our opportunity. And Dr. Lehman came to us, the supervisory team, and said, what if we, instead of addressing learning loss, we turn it in, we still address learning loss, we'll talk about that in a minute. And we'll talk about that more tomorrow night at curriculum committee. But let's use this as an opportunity, not just to get kids excited about coming to school, because let's not forget, these kids are home. They haven't worked in a group, they don't work on a group project. Like some of these kids ever. When those second graders and first graders walk through the doors that first summer, that was the first time they walked step front of school, period. So we had that opportunity to get the kids safe, comfy, and normalized in the school. But at the same time, the stadium is a lot of money. And we said, let's put this into people. Let's get them retrained. Let's get them comfortable on the new technologies, and let's reinvent programs in perpetuity. And we started off, and that's exactly what he did. So that started off as MTSD Summer. And what it's evolved in is MTSDES, which is kind of the name we use for the parent organization, for lack of a better description, that oversees all of our enrichment efforts, not just in the summer and over the school year. So ESSER funded this exclusively for the first year and 3 quarters. Because we ran out of money on second. Go ahead, next slide, please. All right. I don't know if you could minimize that box. Sorry, Mike.
It's kind of fun watching my reaction.
I know, it's embarrassing. All right, so on the left-hand side there, it's kind of a busy chart. You can see this is where we started, all the way on the left. We had a couple STEM camps, right? And we don't use that word anymore because it's not a camp. We had our music learning opportunity, not a camp. And then we had summer remediation, which was summer school. Right, and our summer school, as part of our efforts, we did have kids that failed, obviously. Most of the problem was student engagement, as you might imagine, over the summer. But, when you have a kid that fails with like a 62, or is in the mix, right? Or just didn't get to the finish line, you know, we feel a responsibility as a district to do what we can to get them to the finish line before taking them a year away from them. So we launched summer remediation, and we have had every single student that participated in this program since its inception, except for one, and that's because the kid just decided not her. That's all right, didn't work out. Since then, those were the first 3 programs we ran. The money ran out, and we had to make a decision. The ESSER money ran out. We had to make a decision. Do we just pull the plug and say, hey, that was fun? Because we were starting to see the benefit. One, we were getting staff excited about content that they weren't necessarily excited about prior, because they didn't know about it. 2, we were giving them the opportunity to get trained on and dabble with new technologies, new systems, and new learning, new ways to infuse new things into their existing curriculum without well, how am I going to get this in during NJSLA prep? Or how am I going to do this and do all my other responsibilities? They did it at their own pace, but authentically. And again, everything we did was aligned to an already existing curriculum or co-curricular program. The other thing that made this work, which makes us different than everyone else, is that we only hire certified teachers. And if they are not trained, we will train them for those. Our lead STEM teachers originated as a 2nd grade elementary teacher and a 6th grade ICR teacher. They are now, next week, we'll be leading a team down to Dallas for the world competition. So what we've also done is, through this model, is we've deconstructed this notion that I can't teach this, or this person can't teach that. It's something, as someone that supervised the electives my whole career, something I felt very passionately about. Good teaching is good teaching. I could teach content to anyone if I gave them a pot of coffee, motivated them, and gave them the resources. You know, teaching is teaching, learning content is learning content. And what this enrichment model has also done for our staff is give them the opportunity to take chances on content they didn't know that they were proficient in, and then bring it back into their classrooms. So the money ran out, but what we did was we created a monster. And we in a good way, a bit happy Sesame Street style monster. We created excitement. We were bringing programs into areas of the district that prior no longer were there. For example, middle school robotics, now elementary robotics, theater beyond 6 through 12. A beginning band opportunity for kids that maybe weren't sure to join band, but they tried it out over the summer before they made that commitment. On top of that, our teachers are sharpening the saw, so to speak, all summer long. Instead of buffing tables, many of our teachers, especially our younger ones, are working 12 months. I would not want them working 2 months elsewhere. I want them working for us and working with our students and contributing to our programs. So the program evolution took place naturally. When the ESSER funding ran out, we had to break the news to the public that we would now have to assign a fee to these programs of participation. Now our fees are very strategically selected. The idea of these programs is not to draw a profit. Now, do we want to take a loss? Of course not. But the idea would be a sustainable, ongoing programmatic growth that honors our MTEA contract, but also allows us to deliver these programs with fidelity and in a sustainable way. I would not, and Dr. Lehman and I talk about this regularly when we talk about new program introduction. We want to introduce a program that we don't think we can support moving forward. And the enrichment model has allowed us to do that. We're very explicit with parents that participation in these programs does not have any condition on advancement or selection for any type of program or honors program. This is strictly enrichment. You do not earn credit. You do not get style points on your transcript. The students that we market these programs to are students that want an extended learning opportunity in a content area that they may or may not be interested in or may be curious about. So you can see in the middle column there, the immediate impact that we had when the revenue dried up and we decided to source our growth through the public. And why we think it works is because the new programs that we launch are those that are discussed at length collaboratively with the stakeholders in the community. And that's why we're here tonight. So most recently this year, on the right-hand side, are our most recent program evolutions, which will go live this summer, many of which have already gone live. As you can see, what started off as a simple STEM camp has taken us into 12-month high rigor computer science and robotics instruction beginning in grade 4. It's led to the launch of the MTMS robotics curricular and co-curricular program. We've expanded art, culinary arts, theater, and now what we're calling our third phase. We are launching a preschool this summer, not just a daycare, a preschool. Remember, this is not babysitting. And we're offering extended enrichment opportunities for our youngest learners age K2, or grades K2, excuse me. If you look at the top there, that shield with the overly dramatically sized viral, whatever those things are coming at it. This summer, thanks to the feedback we received from the community and our staff, we will be piloting our district's first pre-medical program, which is something that the community's been asking us for a couple of years. But the reason we didn't roll it out right away is because we wanted to make sure we could do it in a way that's sustainable. And this program will line up nicely with the new program Ms. Drust is introducing to the middle school in the advanced science program next year. So everything we do is aligned. Summer advancement is something that the community has been asking for near a decade. And for the first time in this school's history, I don't know if you guys know this, how many students we sent to Petty over the summer to get math credit. And, why, and Petty sometimes would even hire our own teachers to work there. These types of things, we would say, like, what are we doing? So, and we know that there's a demand for this type of learning, and this program sold out within 2 weeks. Again, now, when our students leave us for the summer, we know that they are in the care of certified, trained, hand-picked teachers that we know are going to meet the needs of these students in the construct of summer learning. Now, keep in mind, we are not advocating that every student goes to school for 12 months. So I wouldn't have been that kid, I'll tell you right now. But is it better than on their iPad or going to some learning center that may or may not be taught by a certified staff? I don't think so, in my experience. And I think that our patrons agree. In fact, 62% of parents that register for these programs are repeat customers. What's mostly exciting about that is that means 48%, right? Or math might be off, sorry, see wherever you are. The rest of that half are people that want to try that. We have new programs every year, and that's basically driven by the feedback we get from supervisors, principals, parents, and students. You can hit the next slide.
Can I throw one thing in there? You could go next, that's fine. So there was an interest in the late, 2017, 2018, 2019 of summer programming. But whenever from a district level, we look to do something, we have to allocate funds for it and there's a risk to it. If it's something new, is it going to be successful? And if it's not successful or doesn't break even or, whatever it is, that's something we have to consider. So we leveraged the funding we were required to spend during the learning recovery piece for 2 years to establish a business model or a model that we could take chances because we were funded to do this, to say, let's do this and see what the enrollment is. And every time we did something, we applied a fee or the lens of, will this carry through in 2 years when we're out of money? Will this be something we can sustain moving forward? Because again, we didn't want to do something that we couldn't kind of bring forward. And I think that was a barrier to the district before we had this opportunity. So it's kind of making, lemonade out of lemons. And, that was a tough time for us. We saw the need to positively expose the students to each other in the school over the summers, getting us back into schools. And it was an opportunity for us to, behind the scenes, establish a model that we could extrapolate from. And, you're going to get into the next step of sponsorships and community. That was part of the conversation once we got going to say, how else can we supplement or connect and expand these programs besides just assigning a fee, right? Because anytime we run something, there's a break-even cost, then we figure out how many students what price we want to hit, how many students are going to take the break even, and we try and find that balance, 10 students versus 5 students. Right. The costs change and stuff. So
we've actually, in not all programs, but for the second straight year, we've actually reduced the fee of many of our programs this year. Again, because we look at when we assign fees to our programs, we have to cover the cost of the staff. And believe it or not, there's actually very little consumable costs to these programs, and that's what makes it successful. So I'm going to give you an example, then we'll go into the sponsorship and how this factors into it. So this summer we're launching we're calling it the Monroe MTSC Med Lab. It's a pre-medical unit that we're parsing it into grades 4 to 5 and then 6 to 8. It's aligned to Ms. Drust's curriculum and the series that she's anticipating rolling out. But part of the launch of this program is going to be acquiring, we haven't seen the deal yet, so we're acquiring we're thinking about acquiring a specific piece of technology that we will use to help deliver this program. It lines up to what we want to do. But when the summer ceases, we're not just going to put these devices in a shelf, I'll say, see in June. They will be distributed to teachers very strategically that, or shuffled around, much like we do our robots. The robots that we used over the summer don't get put away in the summer. They go to 4th and 5th grade and they teach them in grade level units and things like that. These are assets that did not have, that Ms. Graziano at Apple did not have to consider in the assembly of the budget. And so not only, in this day and age, the idea of installing a massive new initiative to like say an elementary school like Barclay, this is my budget, would reflect probably an absurd crooked number on your budget sheet of an increase that we would never be able to power in this day and age. But when we can leverage programs that the community is asking for in an aligned way through our teachers and through assets that are in line with our curriculum, we have essentially identified a way to circumvent what previously have been budgetary constraints for innovative program development. And this is very exciting because when you think about the things, and I'm going to be very honest, these programs that we've rolled out over the last 2 years would not have been possible without an abatement house. We don't want an abatement. We don't want to rob Peter to pay. And that's where this next part comes in. So program sponsorship. You can pop over, please. So years ago, even before when I was in this current position, we would come here, not at this meeting, but I don't remember what committee it was, but we would talk about ways to generate revenue for the district. And the district constructed a policy for selling stadium banners. It's $1,000 a pop, whatever it was. And we were doing okay. And we were selling banners and we were finding, I don't know if I want a banner, I want this. And even and we had a threshold of, even if we met our threshold of $30,000, right? As you know, it would have been very appreciated in the general fund budget, but it's really not going to move the needle into any existential, it's not going to replace the need for stadium, right? So we started looking about how we could use this new opportunity to directly impact students, teachers, and learning. And so what we did was we started to offer direct aligned partnerships, sensible partnerships to support these enrichment programs. So we used the revenue to help support our growth in the enrichment model. And so, because when I went to, and I'll say them because they've been a multi-year partner, Mrs. Kumar's Indian Cuisine right down the street, right? Fantastic partner, one of the original partners of our district. There's more utility in them with being associated with our culinary enrichment program, which prides itself on being culturally responsive and accessible to all learners, than hanging the banner in the stadium. And that's just their position. And to me, that makes a lot of sense. So now what we've done is we've built their sponsorship into the execution of the program, and a portion of that sponsorship allows me to scholarship students into that program. So to me, the value to the district of a stadium banner versus programmatic endorsement, sponsorship, and more importantly, community partnership with that organization. Plus, we let a handful of young boys and girls come to the camp for free because they had financial disadvantages. That is the benefit of the private sponsorship that has been driving the programs. Banners are an add-on value for us. Another example is the recent partnership we made with Monroe Ed Foundation. The benefit for the MEM, with banners not, right? But the benefit was that they were now associated with an event, the first and only event that brought together alumni, industry professionals, and power brokers in the community. So what we're learning and what we're trying to capitalize on is the fact that there are many organizations, whether they be for-profit, non-for-profit, that want to support these programs, maybe not in the form of an increase in their tax bill or a referendum, but and we learned this during the referendum campaign, that there are plenty of people that want to help, but just in a different way. And we are grateful. I mean, some of these partners, you have seen, they keep popping up and word's getting out now. The other thing that's important to understand about the solicitation and the selection of partners. Every single organization we enter into agreement with is vetted thoroughly. And we turn down sponsorships. And I know that sounds crazy sometimes, but if we don't believe that they meet the ideals and the values or the core principles of this district, again, this is the type, I would refer to the Booster Club maybe, or a local PTO. It's just, we're very careful with who we align with. And that's important because if we're going to put an organization's brand next to the school district, we have to make sure we feel really good about it. And that was one of the things that we are very proud of. And the other thing that we're really proud of, our sponsors are exclusively from the Monroe and Jamesburg communities. And I believe by doing that, and again, I wouldn't dismiss someone from outside the community, but it just codifies that partnership so much more. It strengthens the commitment. And these partnerships are beyond just handing over a check. These partners come in and speak to our students. The photo at the bottom of the page there, many of them have appeared on our professional panels. Most of this is volunteer. We're getting, the value that we get from the partnership is definitely, we're making out on. All right, you can hit the next slide. And then we can chat. All right, so see if you can dissect this thing. Here's how it works, all right? So let's start off at 11 o'clock there, okay? So that's us, MTSDES, Monroe Township Enrichment Services, and the revenue from the sponsorship. So we take in the revenue, right? And from the tuition from the students and the revenue from sponsors, and then we push it into, obviously, our staffing and supplies. Okay, so this is where the magic happens. So once we make our determination about who's going to be working, what we're going to be working with, we then get into, we forecast there, you can see. Resources and technologies get distributed, trainings and integration takes place. Now that is happening as we speak. So our staff is now, especially with the new programs, we are making sure it lines up with our curriculum, and we are modifying our units to get ready for our July launch. Because again, we cannot and we will not offer anything in the summer that may contradict or undermine or even usurp the scope and sequencing of our existing curriculum. So this is a very careful process. There's a lot of training going involved. Again, a lot of our training gets funded by the revenue. So again, we know what we're dealing with. We have zero-based budgeting. So once we distribute those technologies and materials, which this is like Christmas Day for this staff, because we're starting to get the stuff in now. And what's nice is we take June and July to get used to it. Then we decide how it's going to fit into our school district. We run it over the summer. Then you can see in our after action there, so we're counterclockwise here. I'll come to you guys with after action. We'll talk about program mapping, and we'll find out how we can take these resources and these units and blend them with existing curricula. So overnight, we are updating, over the summer, we're updating our curriculum, equipping the teachers, making sure they're trained. And we have not touched the budget. We have not hijacked the day-to-day of the teachers. And we're giving our kids a competitive advantage over the summer if they so choose. So that is kind of like the flow of our operations. Last year, we had just about 48 people that received employment from this service, which is a huge winner for our district to reinvest into our, and that doesn't even count the amount of training we protected. And we get bigger every year. We get smarter every year, and we get more efficient every year. And let's see what I got next. All right, so what's next? All right, so what are we here to? Go ahead, Mike, please. So, I know that's not a very thought-provoking or groundbreaking what's next, but it's the truth. If you, the pre-med thing came from a conversation in a hallway. The Lego League came from a gentleman that decided to come into my office and say, hey, we should have a Lego League. We'll investigate it, but this is our sandbox. So when we talk about program development, alongside of what we normally do already, which we think we do very well, this is what we do. And the other benefit of this enrichment program, when we can partner up the community, is that a lot of our accreditation with post-secondary institutions requires a professional steering committee. Which, when we first talked about setting up this committee, my interests selfishly were, okay, I can use these professionals that we bring in to help modify the steering committee. So let's say when we walk away from here, Ms. Newell, I know you've been your family's been a part of these programs for a while now, and Ms. Ratner, obviously. A lot of the feedback we get on programmatic development comes from parents. And, especially the younger parents, because they know what they want. They would like, they had a little bit, hey, I'd like to see a pre-med program by the time I get to high school. Okay, but I gotta start now. And we figure out what the funding's gonna be. We try to source it through our existing programs and through strategic leverage sponsorships. And we continue to grow. And I don't have to ask the principals for a really beefy line item in the budget. But this only works because we have staff. And I am not arm twisting high school kids or college kids to try to get them a $12 an hour. We invest in this program like we would invest in a school district. Normal. And I think that's what gives us an edge. And we do have some students that come from out of district. I'd like to see that increase. I would like to see more students come to this school for summer learning and other summer experiences rather than elsewhere. Because I do believe we can do it better. And as a compliment to the teachers, I think the results speak for itself. So we're really excited about this year. Our website is already up and active. Registration for the summer is live, but right now is the time to be creative. So I guess the ask I would have of the committee would be to, report to your constituency, send us ideas. If you think there's, perfect example about not all ideas stick. I've met with several parents about installing a logistics and supply chain management course. I know, I'm so excited, right? It's also one of the fastest growing industries in America, especially now if they're going to bring manufacturing back, right? So we sat there and said, how do I get kids excited about this and get them learning about it pretty early on? And the answer was, I don't think I can. We're going to have to make it a high school course, which is what the state wants anyway. So yeah, so sometimes not everything can fly over this. We're looking at the CAD class right now, and we have a very small group of kids that want to be civil engineers, or they think they want to be civil engineers in 6th or 7th grade, but they don't know. So we have to pay attention to see, are we getting a little too ambitious with maybe some of the things we offer, and sometimes we do. We made a decision to scrap the Beach Club book bash, not because we didn't think it was viable, but just because it was just not getting the turnout that we liked. So what we did was, instead of having it as a standalone event, we blended it into the existing event, and we made a book club beach bash reading room for kids that need to learn 30 minutes in between sessions. So not everything is work. Right now, our summer remediation program is working for passing kids, but it's not a financially viable model. So tomorrow night, we're going to be presenting a solution to that curriculum. So, I don't want you to think it's just repeat. We do look at this critically every year. We will present an after-action report to the board to let them know what worked and what didn't. But as far as new program implementation goes, specifically at the elementaries and middle school, this summer program and the year-long enrichment model has really been the catalyst that will left all of it. And sometimes, it's important for me to have this opportunity to tell the public that it is so much more than just a summer camp. I cringe even when my staff says, "Oh, what time's camp this week?" No, we don't call it that because it's not that. You guys are not camp counselors, right? You guys just did 60 hours of Project Lead the Way core training. Like, give yourself some credit. And we hold ourselves to that standard too, which is why I think it works. So that's basically the mindset, kind of the mission and vision. And we want to keep growing, and we want to keep expanding and getting more people involved.
I have a quick question. You mentioned not only Monroe students, but are you getting them from Jamesburg to sign up?
We have had students from Jamesburg.
Okay.
We met at our most recent meeting with Dr.
Supervisor.
Dr. Villani and Ms. Dunk.
It's done.
We had discussed that. We've gone as far as even to translate our materials for them. We know they have their own services, but some of our media heavy stuff is annoying. I have reached out to Dr. Visler in Cranberry. And I've also had not done any direct mailing to any other districts, but we will probably do so after May 15th. We do like to give them on our student early access.
Thank you.
Where can the public go if they're interested in being a sponsor?
Well, they can go to the MTSDES website, or they could contact our staff at Community and Monroe, K-12, or they can reach out to me directly. I get a lot of leads from the athletic department, A lot of times, like, the parents will reach out to the teachers now because they're familiar with our model and, they'll say, hey, my so-and-so works out at this place, reach out to them. A lot of times we run into red tape though, with like anything franchise, they're a pain in the butt to work with. I'm gonna take their money, but then they gotta get approvals and stuff.
Do you ladies know what the Ed Foundation does? Everybody's familiar with the Monroe Ed Foundation? Okay, if you want to explain that or me explain it, whatever.
You probably be able to explain it better than me.
Yeah, Monroe Ed Foundation is a group of, community members that have gotten together and raised funds. And what they do is, I think, now this is how I did it when I was in a different district, they give grants out to teachers. And I don't know if they have forms, whether they go in, 500, 1,500. I really don't know.
I can speak to it.
Yes, can you, and I know that we were at a comedy night the other night, and they've had a fundraiser, actually tonight, I think it's Romeo's, whatever money, whatever you order, 10% goes to them, and they give back the money to teachers in grants for programs that they maybe could not afford to put into their class, but after writing up, the curriculum and how it is, right, Dr. Lee?
There's a process they do to apply for a grant. The grants are capped at $2,000. However many grants are given out are a function of how much money the Ed Foundation has available to give. And they sponsor bringing an author in. A lot of things come up after the budget's passed, so if they need an author or something comes in.
Let's offer a perfect example.
Yeah.
So,
Something here.
yeah, so just a few weeks ago, we ran Career Connections Night, which featured many of our private sponsors.
Yeah.
And that was funded, that, the MEF picked up the tab. So that's not something we budgeted for at the high school. And so what we did was we said, hey, this is a great, when the MEF came to us and said, hey, we'd like to make some corporate sponsors, some professional partners. I got an idea, let's kill two birds with one stone. And we always want to start an alumni thing anyway. And so they came in and they allowed us to execute that event. The MEF is currently funding research for a bunch of students in our honors engineering design and development class. So what they do is the students came up with a list of materials and items that they would need to conduct their research, and the MEF helps support that. So that's another example. So their contributions range from just general grants to very specific, right? Am I saying that correctly?
That is correct.
Very targeted.
Yeah.
And what's nice is that the teachers, when they apply, they get an opportunity to talk about it.
Exactly. And then if it's that good, I know when I was on, if it's that good, it went across say it was a fourth grade teacher, and she brought this program and with her grant money. And it was so excellent that we put it across all the fourth grades in the district. So, whatever. Excuse me?
If there's the money to do it.
Right, if there's money, this is a long time ago I'm talking about, but that's what we did a long time ago. If it was that good of a program. I mean, some of the teachers, they don't have the backing. There are some grant, things, donors choose or donors choice, whatever it is, what they're called.
And you're right, it's just we don't use that in Monroe.
Right, I know we don't, but there are, my daughter uses it in New Brunswick. There are other examples of where teachers can get grants, but with an Ed Foundation, it's zoomed in on Monroe. So,
Just to piggyback off that, I think the Education Foundation is the prime example of what a partnership is a perfect example of a partnership that stems from the community. Because it's not just a business, right? And it's not a business partnership, but it is like you said, a group of community members who rely on donations that come in from the community so that they can support our students. So they do have, fundraisers and things like that, but they're also, on their website where individuals can go and donate individually to the foundation. And it is an up and coming foundation. It was defunct for a few years and they're trying to revitalize it and bring it back. So I definitely think it's one of those areas where, the most immediate impact could be felt because that money will go, any donations will go directly to the foundation, and that money will be turnkey directly back into our schools.
Can I just
Yes,
ask,
Ms. Roman.
I actually wrote down my questions. You asked one, which was about Jamesburg, because I think it would be great. I know we've tried to increase our, collaboration with them. I did want to compliment the administration to know when Katie and I had started 4 years ago, a lot of times like this was coming out later, partially because we didn't know what money was available, but, parents are making their summer plans, and so it's hard sometimes to get that schedule. So then, I guess the two questions that I had, besides, I guess there were three, now there's two. The first is the weeks that are used in terms of the classes. Is that something based on the staff availability, or is there another way that's determined? Like, I'll give you an example. So I was looking at the first Lego league for my son because he would love to do that. A lot of our programs that will take place in July, which is when Monroe Rec is running, and a lot of the township organizations have their programs. I don't know, I don't think we've had trouble filling that program itself, but I don't know if there's other where there might be more participation with
Yeah, so,
And just to remind you, we have 10 more minutes.
I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't take Monroe Rec into consideration when scheduling. Because it wouldn't work. I have to work around the teachers' availability, but also I have a commitment to the high school to be clear by a certain date in August,
Okay.
because they resume their activities at a certain.
Oh.
In the building, facilities
Yeah.
have to be.
Yeah, not only that, you have marching band, you have coaching, yeah, and start of school year, we have James. Yeah, so we actually, that's the thing that I didn't mention. So this program also plays a pretty significant role in SY through support, even though it doesn't run as function of the SY. The fact that the program is happening and that it's available,
Yeah.
and facilities are there, allows us to really leverage the existence of the program. And sadly, it only helps those ESY students that are here. But it's been, we don't like to brag about it, because we don't brag about that kind of stuff, but it's been a pleasure to use this program.
You can pat yourself on the back anytime.
Well, no, it's really just for our
I have.
because
Yeah.
it wasn't easy.
No, I think these programs, now, I just want to make sure that the three ladies that are here right now, do you ladies have any questions?
Yeah, I think just, it sounds like the caliber of these programs are very different from that, but I can tell you, just as someone who's an 8-year-old, and a 1-year-old, I've been looking into summer programs very recently. This is the first summer that I'm actually looking into programming for him, and a lot of parents do rec. I mean, I think that's a very,
Takes the whole day.
real,
Well, that's-
I think that's a reality that we're faced with when we're looking at this program, is how do we get around that?
So I'm gonna address this very bluntly, and because this has come up since we started. Measure my words. When our students come here, they walk through, they start learning. And then there's no hanging around, sitting under trees. Monroe Rec works for some families, right? And it's a fabulous program. I went there my whole life, I weren't there. For a time. This is just different, this is not daycare.
Yep.
This is learn.
And I don't say that in a negative disparity to any other of these programs. We don't go beyond 2 hours for that reason.
Right.
We don't want mom to have enough time to get nails done or run errands, or dad to go do his errands, squeeze it in so we can go run errands. That's not the point of this program. This is not supposed to be a break. These programs don't exist to provide a relief or a break. These programs are designed for students that want to learn something. I wrestled, one of the reasons I waited so long to make the K-2 program 5 hours, and to let parents think that's so too short. And it was because I think we have an option for that, right? And the other thing is, and this is the other one, I could never afford a full day. So, when you think about what that would cost to do. But, and then we get into this like philosophy stuff. I don't think kids should be in school all day in the summer. My colleagues agree. There has to be some semblance of a summer day. And it allows the students to continue to engage in whatever else they have going on. We do tend to work around athletic camps a little bit, because many of those athletic camps take place in this building.
Right.
And we've actually done a pretty good job of syncing up our schedules. So like if you go to a morning band lesson, you can make it down to basketball in time. That is the one, yeah, so we try to do that. But as far as consideration of the scheduling, the only consideration I make is I try not to run 2 third-grade classes at the same time. So if you go to the morning third grade in culinary, you can go. If I start worrying, I gotta be honest with you, if I start worrying about those other things.
Yeah, no, I mean, they have specialty camps also, but like to her point, like I'm looking at this now also, right? And so we have like that until July 24th set, but then we're trying to figure out, well, how do we fill that end of July, beginning of August?
Oh yeah, it's a problem for a lot of parents. Like I wouldn't be able to do it because
And,
my
you
wife
know,
has to work.
this is
So
exactly what we would want. It's just, and listen, you can't do everything. The other question, just that I've had heard a lot, and I know we talked briefly about this, was because we've started now doing the high school, enrichment. I forget.
Advanced.
Thank you. So is there any potential future growth with that? Like, I know having an 8th grader, you know, they're all here.
God, I hope so.
You know, they've all talked about the financial literacy requirement, how they want to take a lot of classes, but, you know, you can only take so many classes during the day. Everybody has to take that as a graduation requirement. So I know that there have been talk that other districts sort of offer that over the summer. I don't know what.
Yes,
Yeah.
so the 100%, that's on the part of the conversation. Again, this is a strategic, thoughtful rollout.
Right.
And we also recognize that not every student looks for advancement. So we had a tremendous amount of success with the one course, one subject, 2 courses we offered, both have sold out. And I believe there is no wait list. Am I correct in saying that, Mr. Monroe?
There is no wait list.
Right.
But we are at capacity.
Correct. So we're sold out, but everybody who wanted to come to Monroe to do the advancement has a seat. But we also recognize that if we offered 1 or 2 other choices, there's probably a high probability that the students that are sitting in this course would probably take those other courses. So we're not necessarily going to sell out all the other courses. So we have to balance, because maybe there's 150, 200 kids that are going to consider advancement.
Yeah.
How are we going to balance them while maintaining profitability, sustainability of our program? So that's why this is a, you know, dip your toe in the water.
Yeah, there's definitely a vision.
But our lens certainly has been on the elective side, moving forward for a potential next option. Because when you look at, say, chemistry or something like that, that's a different piece than whether it's financial literacy or even some of our other electives.
We ran a metric on, and we could do this, is we could run the most heavily requested electives that do not get honored. So like when you think about how many kids want work, now working with children is a bad example, but that, you know.
So
Yeah, piano is one of them. Some of the art classes. I look at like a lot of the civil engineering courses or some of those nuanced market, like some of the courses that can't fit in your schedule because we have so many other things you have to get to, and just wait a couple years, computer science will be required. So that's gonna even, but we also have to there are a lot of things that we keep in mind. Course sequencing, coherent sequence of courses, particularly in the maths and sciences. You know, we have to look at, one of the things we looked at is, will the kids, is there a disservice to completing calc by your sophomore year, junior year, and then preparing? You know, we have to think it way through the steps, and that's why this was a big start for us, and we're really excited about the teachers that are going to teach it, and we think it absolutely will get us excited about what's next. But this one's a little bit different than enrichment because we got to be super smart about rolling it out because it could create some challenges down the road.
What did you say the age group is for this one?
You must have completed Algebra 1 at the high school. Correct. Now, the reason I'm making that face is because if I get this wrong, Sue Gaffey was gonna run me over with a truck. And I get us.
Oh, at the high school.
Yeah, so whatever.
Are you asking about high school?
Oh, I'm gonna answer right now.
Tell us about both, so
Both.
it sounds like there's a couple of different programs that
We
we're.
run the tight ship.
This is advancement for credit.
Okay.
That's what we're talking
That's new.
Enrichment.
Yes.
Enrichment is just, let's
Yeah.
learn after school or let's learn in the summer.
Yeah.
So to be fair, Algebra 1, if you take that in 8th grade, you cannot take this for
All right,
advanced.
here we go.
We only have 5 minutes, Mr. Morales.
I know, but to answer your question succinctly, all students must have met their counselor, have successfully completed Algebra 1 with a stated set of criteria. Then if they have permission from Ms. Gasco and myself and the counselor, they can register for. Yeah, so not only did, like, we didn't, there was also a very strict gate to who we could, because we, like, it's bad for everyone if a bunch of kids take this class and do poorly. Especially from fraternity fee, right? And there's no refund. So like, imagine that awkward conversation. So the, parent wants their money back. But the, but yeah, so that it is capped for instructional efficacy. And, we do want kids to be set up for success. So in the event that we denied a kid, it was one, because they hadn't taken Algebra 1 yet, or two, they maybe had completed Algebra 1, but like, maybe we wait till the fall, just because we saw some things that we don't know if this model of learning might be best for you. But we're not making that determination, the math teachers and the counselors make.
And we talked, I talked to a couple students at the, student luncheon that Dr. Chanley has. And not the ones that are graduating, because they were complaining, like, wish we had it before we graduated, some of these courses, because they want to take the summer courses and excel themselves. But there was a junior there, and he said he can't wait. So, you know.
I think I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, we're giving them such an opportunity to just, add to their resume and their college and their experiences in your own district. And like Mr. Morales said, and hired our own teachers, and giving them a summer opportunity.
And if I was gonna, you know, because I've had other districts reach out to me and ask, you know, for constructs and stuff, it goes no further than that. The only reason these programs work is because we hire our teachers.
Right.
The minute we start, well, maybe we can get, this tutor to come in, and no, listen, plenty of intelligent people out there. But the fact that I can offer you the same teacher that just completed that Python training
Right.
course a few weeks ago, that changes everything. And from a leadership standpoint, you know, when I still go back to one teacher, I said, well, what are you doing this summer? She's like, well, I buzz tables. I said, what? I said, that's a great job, but come work for me. And not only are we gonna pay you your contractual rate, which you're valued at, but I'm also gonna equip you with stuff you can take through September.
Yeah.
And
So it's a
And that is-
all-around good experience.
we built our team, you know, we've added people to these initiatives that a couple years ago never thought they'd be teaching Python to kids or pre-medical classes. And these are things I would not be able to do during the school year. We bring them in summer, we indoctrinate them, we train them, and then we send them off in September. And these people become leaders in the building.
It's wonderful.
Very exciting.
So it's so good to hear things like that. That's continuous.
It's been a pleasure to oversee this program.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Morales. I mean, I don't know if you took a breath or a drink the whole hour, but God bless you.
Well, I was told I had an hour to fill, and I was the only item on the agenda.
Well, you were the only item on it. Well, and Dr. Lehman, of course, always, you know, he always chimes in with his knowledge that you two heads are better than me.
But I had to make sure I'm not saying something that's factually incorrect.
Okay, yes, so it takes time. We're gonna end the meeting, but we are also, I talked to Dr. Chanley and thinking of, having this, Citizens Advisory Committee every other month. Because that way they can get more information to get back. This took a lot because last month, Mr. Morale, we didn't get to it. But what do you ladies think about that? I like your opinion on it, having it every other month?
It would be the same duration, like the hour?
An hour.
Month.
Yes.
That's okay.
Does that seem fine with all of you? We'll send out emails and we'll discuss it if we're going to actually do that. It's just something that was brought up to my attention tonight. And I know it's a bad time because the next one would be June 3rd. And I don't know with graduations and I don't know what's going on, if we could skip it to July, but maybe we could take a poll of who would be available. And if not, we can move it to the next month. Does that seem feasible with everybody?
And we're still happy, through that email address, or, obviously directly to me, or to anyone in the community, we're still happy to collect
Yeah.
feedback and ideas, particularly the things that maybe we've talked about in the past. Maybe some things that you've heard from your groups and your communities, to help us drive some discussion maybe into things that are fresh on your mind as well.
Okay. Thank you all for coming this evening. And it's now 8:02 and the end of the Citizens Advisory Committee. Thank you. Enjoy your beginning of your summer. If we don't see you, we'll let you know when we're going to have our next one. Okay? Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.